These containers we're talking about are containers that are housing very, very, very important and essential materials for the work of ECG. So we'll get you the latest update on the show this morning. Beyond that, we also want to find out about the latest survey which has been conducted by Ghana's own renowned and reputable Global Info Analytics. Very, very interesting findings from that borders on both governance and also internal MPP and NDC politics. Would you be interested in knowing, for instance, who leads the NDC going into the 2020 elections? Who is the most preferred person that the Ghanaian electorate would want to see on the ballot in 2028 elections? And also, who would Ghanaians want to see on the ballot in the 2028 elections as far as the MPP is concerned? Now, wait and buckle up, because we intend to bring you a very interesting and a very thought-provoking and riveting conversation on Inside Pages today. So stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Mommy.
Michelle say, fe.
Different era, better result. Time has changed and time has brought Kel Choco Toothpaste. Healthy gums, anti-cavity, fresher breath, and it whitens teeth. Kel Choco Toothpaste. Sankofa.
Yenchi. Kel Choco Toothpaste.
Happy smile.
This advert is FDA approved.
Look around. Home also need a makeover. Oh, mine clearly does. So we went to Ashroom and found the Como collection. It had everything we're looking for and more. Matching furniture for the entire home, designed with you in mind.
Where's Como collection? Dressing up is just a breeze. Always ready with a perfect accessory.
A magic dressing mirror. One look and you're ready to face the world. Or at least the kids.
A bed perfect for young men who want
A table that turns into a treasure chest.
And finally, a sofa with this grand TV unit for family time at home.
Head over to any Ashfoam store now and discover the new Como collection. Ashfoam, feel it, know it.
Yes, next. Hey, Nadia Benson, Asamo.
Me didn't tum. Mr. Femi Calico, just call me cockroach. Now, Mr. Femi once now.
Hey, that's a new.
Improve car.
Yeah.
Captain was key to double the action. Me did this sasso spray. Mr. Femi sasso quell. Yeah, go to my sasso
Come tom preko.
The missing containers at the Tema port belonging to the Electricity Company of Ghana has generated serious concerns among the public after the Minister John Jinapor brought it to the media lens. But how did the minister get to know about these developments?
At the transition committee, Honorable Yarga was there. They gave us a figure of 3,000. Then they told us it had incurred demurrage of 1.5 billion. I was sworn into office on the 17th. On the 24th, I visited the harbour. At the harbour, I was told the containers were 2,500. That is what aroused my suspicion. I didn't say at the harbour that the containers are 2,500. I couldn't have counted 2,500 containers instantaneously. And so from 24th, I went to brief the president on 27th. And by 31st, I had established this committee. There was media coverage. And we took Professor Senyo. He's a chartered procurement expert. The report was submitted just this week. It was during the presentation of the report that the committee told me that contrary to the figures they were giving you, over 1,300 containers cannot be accounted for. These are the facts and nothing but the facts.
What does the minority leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin, who was the board chairman of the ECG between July 2024 and January 2025, know about this issue?
I had the privilege of chairing the board in July. Because I'm a businessman, the first question I ask myself is that how can ECG award a contract? And when the contract is awarded, all the person does is deliver at the port, present bill of lading, and request for payment. I said, with the greatest respect, I don't want to use a word, this is parliament. I was shattered. I said, how? And ECG would have to pay. So I realized that ECG was paying a lot of bills when they have not even had access to the goods. And when you ask them, I asked the procurement manager, director of procurement, a question. I said, why did he say, oh, chairman, this is the practice since. This is the practice. The bureaucracy at our ports, they say the containers are missing. Mr. Speaker, it is true that when these containers come, there is some connivance with some customs officials and they sell.
As a measure to call recurrence of such situation, the Minister, John Jinapor, has ordered for the reconstitution of the procurement unit of the ECG while slashing their budget from 500 million cedis to 250 million cedis. The minister has assured Parliament that he will do everything to his capacity to ensure that perpetrators of these heinous acts are brought to book.
The procurement unit was merged with the estate department. The head of procurement was jettisoned, and the head of estate department was then made to take care of the procurement. So I've written to ECG immediately that should be decoupled and a qualified procurement expert should man the procurement unit. Secondly, we've reduced their budget from 500 million to 250 because we must pay for the power producers. Today the bill is over 80 billion in the energy sector, over 80 billion. And if we don't do something, this sector would collapse. And as Minister, Mr. Speaker, I am determined to do my bit, no matter how difficult it is.
From Parliament House here in Accra, Jeffrey Mautatipo for Metro News.
The Energy Minister John Jinapor first visited the premises of Dangfan Company Limited and Ponlock Manufacturing Company Limited near Shire Hills, as well as a warehouse in Boom, to inspect tons of missing cables uncovered by the National Security Secretariat. At Dangfan Company Limited and Ponlock Manufacturing Company Limited, the minister, who was accompanied by officials from the ministry, was taken on a tour of the smelting facilities and warehouses where cable drums and cables labeled as the property of ECG were being smelted and converted into aluminium rods for export. At Spoon, the minister was shown a large warehouse containing cables suspected to belong to the ECG. However, owners of the warehouse had locked up the warehouse and absconded. The minister assured the public that the ministry will pursue and ensure that the perpetrators were brought to book.
Contrary to the 2,500 figure that was given when we got to the port, 1,300 containers and over could not be accounted for, which means they were missing. Let me put on record that these things have been happening since 2019. And as you can see for yourself, based on where we went, it's a syndicate that has been operating for some years now. As minister, I've taken a decision to break this syndicate. We would chase everybody, pursue every organization that has been operating this cartel. Clearly, as you can see, these are ECG cables. They are meant to be used by ECG, but they end up in these factories and then they melt them in their smelter and produce aluminium rods. That is criminal. And let me make it clear, those who are claiming that the containers were stolen when we came to office, that is false. As you can see here, they are confessing that they started buying these things and these cables right from 2019. So the attempt to usually play the political football will not wash.
Chief Superintendent Osman Al-Hassan, Director of Investigations at the National Security Council Secretariat, who led the minister's tour, disclosed that some of those arrested had attempted to influence security personnel, but the officers remained steadfast in executing their duty.
I will even characterize them as an organized crime, organized criminals. And most often, they always want to pay their way through. Yes, of course, I also got that intel. They couldn't approach me personally, but some of them tried talking to some of the security personnel who followed me to these various crime scenes. And I picked that intel, but of course, that wouldn't work. That's why we decided to involve even the media, so that it also be another check for whatever that is happening.
During the visit, additional containers were discovered at Atlas Custom Dry Port Terminal in Tema, where one has been tampered with whilst the other was intact. So far, 14 individuals have been arrested in connection with the bust, 10 Chinese nationals and 4 Ghanaians.
Being a concern on this issue, have just called on the investigative team of the minister to actually follow the matter to its logical conclusion. And let us see the possible retrieval of those items, and then those who are involved should be questioned to explain the reason for their action. We have been asking questions, and we're actually prevailing on management, top management, to see to the clearance of these items, so that it doesn't attract demurrage. And we were actually not happy when we had as many as 3,000 containers, which most of the things are needed. As you may be aware, there are a lot of maintenance issues that we need to solve. And once those things are sitting at the port, we think that it is just prudent that the expedite action on clearing those things for the use in the company. So we thought those things were still at the port, only to realize that allegedly some of them have been taken from the port to other unknown locations. So being concerned, we have just asked the ministerial committee, investigative committee, to actually follow up. And let's see how best we can be able to retrieve these items. Then we will look at who are involved and see how best we can find solutions to this. Oh, no, these issues were raised far long before the new government came to office. I think it's an early part of last year that we got wind of it. And we have been following. There's a meeting called the Standing Joint Negotiation Committee meeting, where top management holds meetings.
All right, so we're warming up. We're just giving you a precursor to what you should be expecting on the show today. But that's like our second topic. Our second topic for today has to do with the missing containers, ECG's missing containers, because it has generated a considerable, it has generated a significant and a considerable concerns among stakeholders in the power industry and also the general public. So we'll look at that as a second topic. But first, we need to look at the latest polls that have been tracked by our own indigenous, perhaps the most wanted pollster in town at the moment. I'm talking about the man Musa Dankwa, who has some very, very interesting findings that he intends to share with us this morning. And it borders on both governance issues and also inter-party or intra-party politics, i.e. who are both the MPP and NDC electorates thinking or fielding in the 2028 elections. And so you and I would have to pay some more attention to that because leadership matters, and we ought to know who the Ghanaians are thinking of, are looking at, are looking up to taking over the mantle of reign as far as the mantle of leadership as far as this country is concerned. So Musa Danquah has joined us, and right after we'll also be joined by Atta Issa, who is the Member of Parliament for the Sangnarago constituency. He'll be joining us, and also the man, and that's the MPP rep, will also be joining us shortly. But for now, let's Ernest Adade is the man I'm talking about. Yes, is the MPP rep joining us on the show. But for now, Musa Danquah is ready. Musa, good morning. And,
good morning, Moro.
As Muslims, when we meet, we always say Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
And it's always a pleasure to have you here. You've been the man on the move. I mean, everybody's talking about Musa Danquah, and you've been very busy in the last few weeks, of course, responding to some media engagements. I know you don't talk to just any media house, but you talk to reputable media houses, people who want to do proper work, not just what we call galamsey, work. But first of all, what were you seeking to achieve with this latest survey that you have conducted? And what have been some of the findings that you believe you want to share with us? It's a very voluminous document, but I believe you would pick and choose the areas, depending on the time which we have allotted to you, the areas that you believe that for now you can share with Ghanaians. And then later, people who want to have a look at the document in full, you can tell them where to go find the rest of the documents. First of all, what's your reason for doing this? Your motive?
Moro, we have a calendar at Global Info.
Okay.
Our polling calendars are usually January, April, July, and October.
Okay.
That's a cycle.
Okay.
So whether we announce it or not, it is bound to happen.
Right.
Just that in the last January month, because of the elections and handover, we didn't see the need for us to start polling in January. So we left it till now. So we're going to be doing that in that cycle. So it's not something that motivates us. It's the work we have planned to do, which we will do. And as usual, we look at the governance issue. I mean, matters that bother Ghanaians in terms of the direction of the country, performance of the president, people's standard of living, corruption, and other matters that we think bother on our development. And those are what we call constantly tracking data that we've been doing for the past 3.5 to 4 years now. And we'll continue to do so going forward. But again, we also look at the political side of things. Like it or not, people are beginning to just look for position to see whether they should contest or they shouldn't contest, both in MPP and NDC, and more so in MPP. NDC, we haven't had anybody making any announcement. So the names we have there is just figment of my own imagination and thinking, let's bring people who we think could be running, not because they've said they are going to run, but people we think could be running. But in the MPP, we've seen quite a lot from the MPP side in terms of Kennedy movement becoming more vocal on social media and also more engagement. We saw what happened in the Doom Fire. Everybody went there. So we could see the MPP flag bearers actually going there.
You mean the signs are clearly written on the wall?
Signs are clear. And I think for MPP, they can start doing that because they're not in government. So they have a lot of time to go through that. But for NDC, some believe that they have to focus. And I think they should focus. I mean, the fact that polling is happening doesn't mean that you should be distracted. You should focus on your job. And Ghanaians, if they think that you are the right person, I think they would select you. So that's the reason why we did this work. But what we have to say is that as pollster, you cannot go into the field with skewed questions. Sometimes, or most of the time, we do equalization. Even if you have been sent by an MPP guy to go and do survey for him, when you go, you ask about the NDC matters. Because you don't want to give any clue that somebody has sent you. Or you're doing a survey for somebody. So the fact that we are there doing MPP, we have no choice but to add that of the NDC race. And that is a must. We will do that. So those who are saying it's too early, well, as for posters, we do our job. And them as politicians, they also focus and do their job.
That's all. So what are some of the key findings that you believe you ought to share with us? And then when you're done, please let us know where we can go and find the documents, the complete document, and peruse it.
Sure. we're going to look at the perception of where the country is headed now, the direction of the country. We'll be looking at the performance of the president per the poll, nationally and across various regions. We'll look at perception of corruption today. Is it going up, or is it reducing, or is it the same? We're going to ask people whether they believe this government is doing enough to fight corruption. And then we'll look at the corruption perception league table of key public institutions. Which of them do the public believe is least corrupt or most corrupt? We have that data to look at. And we would compare that data to what Afrobarometer did last year, August, to see whether some have made progress or others have kind of slipped down the table. So we'll look at, and then we come to the political side of things, MPP and NDC.
Okay. All right. So please, shoot.
So in this survey, we interviewed close to 8,400 Ghanaians across all the 16 regions.
Okay.
And from 84 constituencies that we picked randomly. Now, let's look at the first question. We asked them, in your view, do you believe that the country is now headed in the right direction or wrong direction? Simple question. So you assess everything that you are aware of and see whether now we are okay, on the right path or not. At the moment, 62% of Ghanaians are saying that yes, we believe that we are headed in the right direction. Those who said no, wrong direction, is 26%. And those who didn't have opinion on that subject question is 12%. If you compare this to the last tracking poll that was taken in October 2024, those who said right direction were 31%. And those who said wrong direction were 62%. And those who did not have opinion were 7%. So here you can see a complete flip of the perception of people. Wrong direction is now 26, and right direction is now 62. Completely different country as far as the direction of the country is concerned.
And you have 7% no opinion?
No opinion.
12% no opinion?
Yes.
But you have this theory that says usually when people say they don't have an opinion, so for example, if you take the green are those who are saying wrong direction.
If you look at the green, and then there's also, what do you call it? Those who are saying wrong direction,
yes.
This is their block.
Yes.
Those who are saying right direction, this is their block. And this, no opinion, this is their block. But then you are able to see October, which is the deep blue,
okay,
and April, which is the light lemon green.
Right. Can I, for instance, based on the theory you've always espoused in the past, that usually when people say they don't have an opinion, they are more tilted towards a certain direction, or it may not apply here.
Sometimes they may be too early for them to express their opinion on that matter.
Okay.
So they sit on the fence and say, let's wait and see.
Okay.
Now, if you look at those who are saying right direction and wrong direction across the region, look, every region is saying right direction, with the exception of Ashanti region, which has 39% wrong direction, 39% right direction, and 5-3 wrong direction. So every region agrees that now we are headed in the right direction, except Ashanti region.
Okay.
And then we asked them about the performance of the president. How do they judge his performance? Is he doing? Do they approve the way he's doing his job, or they disapprove? At the moment, 66% of voters approve of his performance. 23% disapprove. 11% have no opinion. They are still sitting on the fence. When you compare this approval to the last we took in October 2024, then approval was 36%, disapproval 59%, no opinion 5%. So you can see that the country's mood has changed with regards to how they perceive the president's performance.
So it appears that the president is still enjoying some goodwill, some level of goodwill.
Yes, goodwill is being enjoyed. And then again, if you look at the regional breakdown, every region says approve, except Ashanti region, where 46 disapprove and 42 approve. So even in Ashanti region, the gap is smaller in terms of disapproval of the president.
Okay.
which is very good for a president.
Okay.
And then we asked them about the general performance of the government. Because Mahama is an individual and the government is a body. How would you rate the performance of the current government so far, 3 months into the office? Excellent, 21%. Very good or good, 55%. Average, 9%. Very poor or poor, 15%. If you compare this to the last data that we collected, those who said excellent for the government then was 9%. Those who said very good or good was 30%. Average was 12%. Poor or very poor was 49%. So nearly half of voters were saying the government was performing poorly. Now, if you add 55 to 21, you get 76% are saying excellent or very good or good for a government that is 3 months old.
So that's progress.
That's a huge improvement
Right.
for a government that is just 3 months old. Again, who said it was improving were 20%. Those who said it was getting worse, 52%. The same, 24%. No opinion, 4%. Here again, it's a complete turnaround of perception about corruption in Ghana today by the voters. Clearly, something has changed. We then went a step further to ask them, do you believe that the current government is doing enough to fight corruption? When we asked them that same question last time, 29% said yes, they believe that the MPP government was doing enough to fight corruption. But 62% said no, they don't believe the government then was doing enough to fight corruption. And 9% didn't have an opinion. Now you can see the numbers. Those who said yes is 59%. No is 26%. No opinion, 15%. Again, it mirrors the way they perceive overall corruption in the country today. Then we asked them about perception of corruption in public institutions. So what we did was that we gave them a list of public institutions, key ones, and we said, rating each entity on the basis of 1 to 10. 1 being the least corrupt and 10 being the most corrupt. Pick a figure in this range and assign to any public institution that we will mention their names to you. And at the end of the day, this is what we had. The still top the league table with 6.43 score. So out of the 10, they score 6.3 averagely from all the respondents that we received. We had responses from. Followed by the Ghana Immigration Service, 5.86. Judiciary, 5.73. GRA, 5.68. Local government reps, 5.63. Business executives, 5.63. Electoral Commission officials, 5.53. Traditional leaders, 5.51. Parliament of Ghana, 5.47. The prison service, 5.43. The military, 5.27. And the presidency, 5.27. Religious leaders, 5.25. And ministers and government officials, 4.61. It means the least perceived most corrupt, or the least perceived corrupt institution in Ghana today, ministers and government officials, followed by religious leaders, and then the presidency for the first time. Now, if you look at the survey done by Afrobarometer last year, the presidency was second on the league table. Now it is last but 3. That is a significant change. Also, parliamentarians, they were a bit high up. Members of parliament, they were fourth. Now they have declined in the league table. But the judiciary has moved from 5th position to 3rd position in our league table. Now, what we're going to continue to do is that every quarter this survey will be repeated, so we can have a tracking record of how they are performing. And if you look at the average, I hope this average doesn't go up, Because on the average, it's 6.43. If they top again with 6.7 or 6.8 or 7, it means the perception about their corrupt practices is increasing, and they are probably getting a higher score. So it is expected that we must improve these numbers downwards. So we'll see how these numbers pans out going into the future. Something that we'll be monitoring closely.
Yeah.
And then we finally delve into the election matters and our politics. Again, people are jostling for positions, MPP and NDC. And we can't go and focus on MPP. No, that's not what posters do. You must be seen to be independent. You must be seen to be objective. So even if there's no time, or it's not time for NDC yet, once MPP is in the field, we will add NDC to the question so that we will look balanced. Otherwise, people will kind of begin to think, he was sent by MPP. And they'll begin to give you MPP responses rather than giving you a Ghanaian most objective. So we have no choice but to bring NDC in. Okay. It's for them to know how to use that data. Now, who leads MPP? BAM. Among the people we spoke to, Ghanaians we spoke to, let me emphasize, this is not MPP delegates. Yeah. These are Ghanaians, comprising MPP voters, NDC voters, floating voters, other smaller parties, and those who don't even tell you the party that they belong to. Yeah. In the survey, 3% said they would have voted for Dynamo to lead MPP. 4.2 said they would vote for Honorable Brian Achampo. 7.3 would vote for Kwabena Ejepon. 12.5 would vote for Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. 25.1% would vote for Honorable Kennedy Ejepon. And then 48.1 would vote for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. As at now, this figure or this poll number will be tracked going forward to see how the numbers are changing or moving. If you look at the party affiliation of these respondents, MPP supporting Educhum is 11%. MPP backing Kennedy is 22%. MPP backing Bawumia is 57%. MPP for Brian Achampon 3%. Adainimo 3%. Kwabena Ejepon 5%. Then you see the NDC people. But the key thing here is that to see how the delegate could behave, you must look at the MPP supporters thinking and not those of NDC and floating vote. Because the MPP delegate tend to reflect the views of general MPP sympathizers. Yeah. So we shouldn't read too much into the other candidates. But when you are also going to elect, make sure you don't overlook the views of others. Because once you have finished your primaries, whoever you elect will face these people. Yeah. And their view at that time will matter. These are the regional numbers that you can see. Bawumia leads in Ahafo, he leads in Ashanti region. In Bono region, he leads in Bono East. But Kennedy leads in Central region. Bawumia leads in Eastern region. He leads in Greater Accra 45, Kennedy 32. Northeast, Bawumia 71. North, Bawumia 64. Oti, Bawumia 36, Kennedy 33. And then in Savannah 44 for Bawumia and 19 for Kennedy. In Upper East, Bawumia 39, Kennedy 23. In Upper West, Bawumia 65, Kennedy 14. And in Buta region, they are tied. Bawumia 27, Kennedy 26. Western region, Bawumia 49, Kennedy 23. And Western North, Bawumia 54 and Kennedy 20. So we will be tracking this going forward. It gives you a bit of idea of what's happening in the regions. And then what we did was that we put the regions into blocks. The Akan areas of Ghana. These are about 8 regions put together. Ashanti, Eastern, Central, Western, Western North, Bono, Bono East, and Ahafo. Yeah. When you group the views from these areas, the Akan dominated regions, Bawumia is 49, Kennedy 23.5, Educhum 13.7, 6.6 for Kwabena Ejepon, 4.1, for Brian Achampon 3.2 or so for Adainimo. And then in the northern regions, all the 5 put together, Bawumia is 57.7, Kennedy 18.5, 6.1 for Abichum, 8.7 for Kwabena Agyapong, 5.3 for Brian Acheampong, and 3.6 or so for Honorable Addai-Nimoh. And then when you look at the voter region, Kennedy has a slim lead in voter OT put together. Kennedy 30%, Bawumia 28%, Abichum 16%, Kwabena Agyapong about 10%, Brian Acheampong about 10%, and you have Addai-Nimoh 6%. So this is the block that we are seeing emerging from this MPP primaries. Who leads NDC? That is a very tall list. We've kind of looked across the party and see the potential candidates, whether historically or going forward. So all these names we have here, they are figment of our own imagination. It's our own selection, and we couldn't do that without having the vice president in the pack. So we have Professor Opoku Agyeman, Haruna Iddrisu, Atuforsin, Ablakwa, Asiedu Nketia, Zinator, Julius Deborah, Omane Boama, Joshua Alabi, Eric Opoku, Hannah Tete, Ewa Daku, Buzitano, Alex Mould. The one name that I have just been prompted is not on a list. It's Honorable Ofosu Ampofu. So in the next poll we're going to do, we'll put this name there. We don't want to leave anybody. And if there are people that they think they are harboring any interest, we will be keen to know so that we will see how they fare going forward. But in the poll, let's see.
But I need to set a record straight. Not set a record straight, but I need to say something. When Musa Dankwa tells you that it's a figment of his imagination, please ignore him. His ears are on the ground. There are lots of people who talk to him, and lots of people call him. He's a researcher, so he picks a lot of information from, when I say from the ground, you know what I'm talking about. So when he says figment, he's not just putting this thing up because he's dreaming them. He lives here too. He hears, he listens, and he has a lot of people he talks to. So, tell us the truth.
No, but there are certain names I don't know. Because it's not every conversation that we will hear.
Okay.
But once we hear it,
right,
and it's credible,
right,
and it's viable, we'll put it there.
You put it up there. Okay. But majority, you picked up spike. But
it's just as a researcher, you should be able to sit back and see who could potentially lead this country.
Right.
From afar.
Right.
This is what we have.
Right, that's fine.
So in the contest, Jenana Professor, 25%.
Okay.
Haruna Iddrisu, strongly behind her, nearly 21%.
Right.
Honorable Atuforsin, around 13%. Okujetu Ablakwa, around 10%. Johnson Asiedu Nketia, General, around 10%.
Wow.
Zinator Agyeman Rawlings, 6%. Julius Deborah, around 5%. Omane Boama, around 2%. Joshua Alabi, around 2%. Eric Opoku, around 2%. Kanatete, around 2%. Ewa Daku, around 1%. Buzitano, 1%. And Alex Mould, just under 1%. So these are the initial long list we have. Now, how do they fare among the party themselves? Within the party, as NDC, Professor Jenana Opoku gets nearly 20% of NDC vote. Asiedu Nketia gets nearly 10%. Joshua Alabi, 2%. Julius Deborah, around 7%. Atuforsin, around 15%. Haruna Iddrisu, around 21%. Ewa Daku, 1%. Eric Opoku, around 1.5%. Ablakwa, 11%. Omane Boama, 2%. And Alex Mould, just under 1%. Zinator, almost 6%. Buzitano, 1%. Anatete, around 2%. So this is broadly how NDC is split, or they are splitting their vote across these numerous candidates. Then you can look at other parties. Now, but here again, you look at your NDC bloc and what they are thinking, because NDC thinking or NDC's voters thought tends to reflect the NDC delegates. Then the regions. If you look at who is leading in Ahafo, in fact, it's very close race in Ahafo. Asiedu Nketia is leading with 13% in Ahafo, followed by Professor Jenana Opoku, 12%, and then Ablakwa, 11%. I'll look at the top three in those regions. Ashanti region, Jenana Opoku, 63%, very dominant Ashanti region.
Yeah.
And then Nketia, Asedin Ketia 10%. The rest are doing less than 5%, with Haruna doing 6% there. When it comes to Bono region, Asedin Ketia dominates 34%. Then you have Haruna 24%. Then you have Professor Poku, Nano Poku 11%. When it comes to Bono East, who lives in Bono East, you have Ablakwa 23% in Bono East, followed by Haruna 20%, and then Asedin Ketia 14%. Central region, Jenana is third there. In fact, in Central region, Atufosin lead 27% in Central region. Haruna 21%. Jenana 16%. That is shocking for me because I was expecting it to do.
Yeah.
But I think they're looking at Atufosin as the future of their region and not Jenana. Probably no, maybe she might not go, but we don't know. Eastern region, Jenana 33%, Asedin Ketia 10%, Julius Debra 12%. He does very well in Eastern region, that's his home region. And 7% for Haruna Idrisu, and Ablakwa 10%. So Ablakwa is not doing bad at all in Eastern region. In Greater Accra, Atufosin 32%. Haruna 20%. So in the swing regions of Greater Accra and Central region, Atufosin and Haruna head to head. Then you have Jenana 9%. Ablakwa is on 11% in Greater Accra. So the top three in Greater Accra, Atufosin, Haruna, and Ablakwa. When you come to the Northeast region, it's Haruna 47%, Asedin Ketia 22%, Jenana 19%. In the Northern region, shockingly, Jenana 40%, Haruna Idrisu 22%. That is unexpected.
Prof is doing much, she's doing better in the Northern region
than Haruna Idrisu. That is shocking.
I see.
Yes. And then you see OT, Prof is on 31%, followed by Asedin Ketia 12%, Ablakwa 16%, Asedin Ketia 12%, Haruna, Atufosin 10%, Haruna in the region, I think 7%. And then Savannah, Jane, Prof 34%, then you have Haruna 38%, a very good performance there, and then Asedin Ketia 15%. When it comes to Upper East region, top there is Haruna Idrisu 34%, and you have Ablakwa 10%, and 10% for Ezinato, and 10% too for Asedin Ketia. Then Upper West region, top there is Haruna 32%, and you have 18% Asedin Ketia, and then you have Ezinato 11% in the Upper West region. In the Volta region, Ablakwa leads 35%. Haruna is on 13%. Atufosin. Number 5, Atufosin is about 8% in Volta region, and Jenana 8%. So you can see that the contest in Volta region is really between Ablakwa and the next Haruna Idrisu in Volta region. In the Western region, 25% for Jenana Opoku. Then you have 17% for Haruna Idrisu. You have 12% for Julius Debra, and another 11% for Ablakwa in the Western region. And then in the Western North, lead by Mosquito leads 24% in Western North, followed by Jenana Opoku, and then you have Julius Debra 19% there. So this is the shape of the NDC race across the various regions. These numbers may change as time goes on, and I think if a candidate drops out, you'll begin to see where that candidate support begin to realign. So what we'll do in the next time is that we'll create a scenario where we'll drop some faces and we'll see how their numbers realign along the line. Again, we did the Akan regions, the northern regions, and Volta regions. In the Akan regions, Jenana 35%, Haruna Idrisu around 12%, Ketia Asedu 11%, and you have Atufosin around 8%, and you have Ezinato around 7%, Julius Debra 7%. So these are the top leading guys in the Akan areas. When you move the northern regions, then you have a different race. Haruna Idrisu 31%, Jenana 24%, and then Asedin Ketia 12%, and these are the top three in the northern region. When it comes to Volta region, you have Ablakwa 29%, you have Asedin Ketia, Haruna Idrisu 10%, and Jenana around 15%. Now, this will be the top 5 per the poll that we did. Now, if you remove the other candidates and say, okay, let me look at the top 5 candidates, how does the numbers look at top 5? Top 5, then Jenana goes to 80%. Haruna 24%, Atufosun 16%, Ablakwa 13%, Asedun Ketia 13%. The critical thing is that if Jinana should decide not to contest, where her base moved to will decide who becomes the NDC flag bearer.
Quite clearly.
Yes.
Because she has such
yes.
She's recording some very huge
So
things.
wherever she moves to, that person could become the flag bearer for NDC. Now,
but is it automatic? Will the voting bloc just move?
See, numbers don't lie.
Okay. So
if we're saying that
is the love people have for her transferable to whoever she endorses?
Yes, it will. Most numbers will move that direction. Yes.
Okay.
And remember, I will reserve that comment here. Now, if you decide that okay, let's keep the old guards out, and let's look at the younger candidates who would emerge as the front runner in this polling. When you do that, then using the new generation, then you have these numbers. So you take out all the old guards and see among the younger generation who comes out. Then you have Haruna Idrisu 37%, Atufosun 25%, Ablakwa 21%, Zenato 12%, and Omanibo Ama 4.7%. This is the top 5 of the younger generation. This is what you see. What we'll do next time is that we would also create a scenario of another question. Assuming NDC leave the field for the young guys, who would you vote? We want to delve behind the numbers to really have an insight into how people will behave when the old guys are no longer in the race. Right. Then you have a better insight as to what might happen. And that will help us to really predict well ahead before it happens. And that's the end of the political race.
Wow, what an impressive job you've done. But regarding the internal contests of both the MPP and the NDC, I get from what you're saying is that two factors can influence people's polls or the numbers. Now, new entrants, right, into the space or into the field, and also time. Right? So time, and then also who is entering and who is going out. And so none of those persons who are leading now would even say they are safe.
No, this is early days.
Yes, it's early days. Because that's highly dependent on who is coming in and who is going out.
Yes.
And as you have rightly said, if we suppose that, or we presuppose that Professor Jane will not even contest, you've asked the question, who is likely to enjoy her support? Because the support is huge.
Yeah.
And I was talking to you off air even before we came, and one of the things you said was you foresee a younger generation leading the NDC going into the future. And here we're talking about the not too distant future, 2028. Why do you say so?
Moro, first, Ghana is a younger population.
Right.
And I don't think Ghanaians will go to the polls and forget that they are young people and pick very old men to lead them. It won't happen. And secondly, especially for NDC, look at the cabinet. What is the average age of the NDC cabinet?
About 30-something years. About
40. Do you think young cabinet will go and let old men to lead them?
Right.
So sometimes it's the demography of the moment that determines who lead the country.
Right.
So once you are thinking about what to do, look at the demography. Look at the data. See who would likely connect well with that demographic.
Okay.
And I think that will give you a lot of clues.
Right.
Long before the race is even open.
I see. So that's with the NDC. Now let's come to the MPP. I mean, for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and his performance in the last elections, why do you think that he's still leading? I mean, there was an aspect of the research you did, which you were seeking to find out whether the electorates felt it was more of Nanes. It was whether it was a referendum on Anado or it was actually a referendum of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia You didn't show that, obviously, because we didn't have a lot of time. What does the outcome tell you in terms of how that informs their choice going into the future? What was the outcome?
You see, for the MPP, it's a very complex situation they find themselves in.
Okay.
A lot of people blame Nana Addo for what happened in the
polls
election.
that we conducted.
And then second person on that list is Ken Ofori-Atta. And the fourth person on that list, not distant behind Ken Ofori-Atta.
The third person.
The third person is Bawumia. So everybody has a fair share of the blame. Now, as to why he's leading, look, MPP has tradition of saying that you must give him a second chance. Second chance.
I think a third.
So when you talk to voters, they tend to buy into this concept for now.
Okay.
Unless somebody makes a very strong case against that concept. For now, I haven't heard any counter argument on that to see whether from Kennedy or so they are maybe allowing that to go on, and that eventually will determine how the race goes. Because if people feel that a man a second chance, I think that may become a reality. Unless you're able to make a very strong case against that argument, then you have a chance to break through. So these numbers are going to move when people begin to talk and begin to approach the campaign in a very strategic way, in a way that connects the people. And it's up to them, whether Bawumia himself, how to couch a message to make sure that he sustains this perception that he should lead. And also for Ken, what he should be doing to counter that argument. Is for them, there are two campaign teams to come up with a solution. But they have time to decide what happens. It's a very difficult place MPP has found himself in because the loss is quite heavy. I've said that it's going to take them a time to really recover.
You said it's going to take them more than 2 election cycles.
Yes, because of the magnitude of the seat they have lost. You see, once you're able to start gaining some seat back, then realistically you can be having a second shot at the presidency.
Okay.
But you can't be weak at the parliamentary level and expect miraculously you win the presidency. So the rebuilding must start from now and look into short to medium term targets and see where they want to be in the next few years.
Two quick questions. Bawumia polled 48% in this poll that you just conducted. Should he be worried, or he should not be that bothered, or he should just be concerned?
I think he should be worried because if you look at the race as it is,
yes,
if the other candidates begin to consolidate against him, he will be in trouble.
Okay.
Yes.
You mean if the likes of Adani, interestingly, you left out Boakye Ejiako.
Maybe next time we'll throw him in.
That's fine.
So next time we are thinking there are some names that have been given to us that we're going to throw them in, but we won't make them public here.
Okay.
We'll throw those names and see how they fare.
Whether it changes the
dynamics or not. But I think the danger for Bawumia is that if people unite against him, he will be in trouble.
That's interesting. But here's the thing. For a government that is still enjoying such massive goodwill, as you have polled, 66% believe that John Dramani Mahama is headed in the right direction. Doesn't that logically stand to reason that the opposition figure would not be seen favorably because the wind at the moment is blowing more favorably towards the sitting president? Or you don't think there's any nexus between the two?
No, certainly after losing an election of this nature, you should be struggling to be where you are. But if you look at the numbers that he's clocked, 48% of people think that he should lead MPP, and among MPP is 57%. That's early days. Okay. So it really depends on what the two camps decide to do in terms of their messaging. It's very important people are able to understand what people are thinking and find a message that breaks through their mind.
Yeah.
You see, if you're not able to do that, then you'll just be moving around and not really hitting the target. So they should rather be focused, understand the data very well, and see why. We haven't given you the answer why. We've told you what it is.
Yeah.
You can go and find out why by asking other open questions and get to understand people better than we have given you now. So there's more time for them to do that, and they can really figure out what to do. And also, In doing that, they should be looking at the views of other people who are not MPP. Because you can go and elect somebody as a party people, and you bring it and people will reject that person. So you have to be very tactical in the way you do things.
Now, let's look at the demographics. Again, I noticed that in the account-dominated areas, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia appears to be doing well. Meanwhile, in the last elections, one of the things, not from you, but one of the things that came up in the conversation that lead up to the elections was that the account-dominated areas may not necessarily come out in the numbers to vote for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia because of where he comes from. But we see in these polls that he's not doing badly at all in the account. In fact, interestingly, or let me say ironically, he's doing much better than Ken.
Yes, I mean, that is the data so far. But we shouldn't also forget that within the Akan region, there are people who are NDC who want to vote for, who are preferring Bawumia. For what reason, you must be very careful.
Okay.
Was it a tactical voting by the NDC guys to get MPP to elect somebody they think they can beat? So the data has to be read with caution and really drill down. Because if you go to do a further study and somebody says, I'm NDC, oh, I want to vote for Bawumia, you ask him why. Then you will know why he's making that choice. If he is doing that sincerely and genuinely, you will know. If he's doing that for tactical, strategic reasons too.
No, I get it. I mean, I'm sure there are some of these people who feel Bawumia is a weaker candidate.
Absolutely.
So you will tell you, oh, bring him.
Bring him.
You know.
So you have to be
so you can't really trust what the motive
of the NDC people are.
The NDC electorates.
And that number is part of the 48%.
Yes. Oh, I get it. So it's much more nuanced than that. So be careful. Don't look at it at face value.
Yes.
Yeah, you must dig a bit deeper. Okay. And let me just say that the Honourable Member of Parliament for the Sagnadogo constituency, I'm talking about Taisa, he's joined us now. I want to find out whether he has any questions for you after listening and monitoring everything. In fact, he was following with rapt attention, as you were making that presentation. Do you have any... first of all, welcome. Good morning. And it's good to have you join us on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. Do you have any questions for him based on everything you heard?
Not really.
Okay. I mean, Harun Idrisi is a very good friend.
Yes.
He's leading the polls. For now, he appears to be the most favored.
The good thing is that he said the purpose for the poll was not NDC.
Yeah.
And for us, we think that we have been elected with a 4-year mandate to serve.
Right.
So our focus right now is on service to Ghana.
Right.
I'm sure when the time comes, when it is right for that, we'll engage in. But suffice to say, Honorable Musa Danquah has established himself as a very reputable and credible pollster.
Yeah.
And if you underestimate his findings, you do it at your own peril. To that end, I will thank him for the continued service, because I am particularly happy with some areas of his research, especially with the direction of the country.
Yeah.
We must commend His Excellency, the President, for how far he has brought us. And also, if you look at the performance of the President, the approval is also very good.
Yeah.
His commitment to fighting corruption has improved. Fight against Galamsey also. I saw a Galamsey thing in the report, or it's not this one?
It's in the same report.
It's the same report, but he couldn't share all of that with us because of time. Yes.
I read it. So I think that let's commend him for what he has done. I don't have... Okay, let me ask a question on the MPP.
Okay.
Now, I will say that if you look at the breakdown, he's saying that from the core MPP supporters, only 50 out of the 48%, only 57% are of the view that Bawumia should continue.
Yes.
But among the NDC, I think it's about 44%.
44%.
That can only mean one thing. It don't have any other explanation.
Okay.
Because a party that voted you out, or the section of the populace that voted you out 3 months ago, and with this level of approval of the government, the only reason the MPP people will vote for Dr. Bawumia is because he's the only one you can predict that will beat squarely again. So he was trying to be more academic.
I thought he's getting into the minds of the people he spoke to.
No, there are NDC people.
And he's suggesting that they mean mischief.
I made that point that some of them may be mischief.
Yes.
And you must go beyond the numbers to understand whether it's real affection or mischief.
We'll urge you to.
So you're not surprised?
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Okay.
We'll just urge you to continue serving Mother Ghana.
Right.
I'm sure prior to the election, you were discredited and called all sort of names.
Yeah.
But now, like you introduce him, he's the most wanted man in Ghana.
Yes.
So I want to commend you once again for the effort you are doing. I thought after this one you would have rested.
This man doesn't rest.
Yes, you don't rest, and it's good. It keeps the government also in checks as to how they are faring. So we will take the post seriously,
right?
But we'll discuss it more when the MGC time is due for next presidential primaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Did anything come up about the economy in the polls?
Yeah.
Because that's extremely
Yes,
important.
we did ask people about the standard of living.
Okay.
Whether it has improved compared to a year ago.
Right.
And majority of them said yes, it has improved. I think around 61% or so say it has improved.
Okay.
But we also looked into the future, whether they believe that it will improve again in the next 12 months. And again, most people said yes, they believe it's going to get better.
Right.
And then we did ask them about the economy, the budget that was read. Whether
budget.
Yeah, about 64% were satisfied with the budget.
I see.
Only 10% said they weren't. So
I can easily guess why they like the budget. I'm sure.
I mean, the e-levy removal,
the betting tax
removal.
and so on.
I mean, these are things that the youth and people, with the e-levy, everybody was affected.
But in terms of the demographics, so the age, in terms of age, were they younger people, much more younger people? You spoke to older people?
No, it's a fair balance. If you see if you see the age profile, it's like a bell shape. Okay. Represent the population of Ghana. About 10% were between 18 and 24.
Okay.
And between 25 and 34, about 30%. So it's a good chunk that looks at the structure of the population that we have.
Okay. Do you think that if the age demographics was much older, we probably could have produced different outcomes?
Yes. If we had older population,
say from 40 to say 60,
then the older guys will have a chance.
Yeah.
But these are Gen Z voters. These are very, very young voters. Still millennials. So it's going to be tough for the old guys. The old guys will struggle. I'm being truthful and being factual. Because when you go to the minds of young people, those who spend time on social media, TikTok in particular, you can see the age gap.
Okay.
And how these young guys are now very vocal, very active in politics, and they want to elect people who look like them.
Right. But let me ask you this, Ataisa. I mean, you're a politician, and your party is in government. Does this goodwill that the party is enjoying, right, with this high approval rate by Ghanaians, do you think that it probably is putting more pressure on the government to stay or to maintain that level of approval rate? Because you don't want to do anything that drops your approval rate. Then it puts you into some kind of a panic mode.
Yeah.
Do you think it will bring more pressure on the look? And I'm asking this question because just recently there was this allegation that was made by Reverend Tim Fodjo. It's not part of our topic for today. But look at the speed with which the president had to respond. And to say, I acknowledge what you said, investigative bodies look into it, and you, MP, collaborate, and cooperate with them as, for them to look into the matter. Yeah. So I don't know whether this kind of research, that's my final question to you before Musa leaves us. Do you think it's going to bring more pressure on the government?
Yes, I think that any government that wins an election, there's always that level of goodwill and high expectation. And citizens of this country being subjected to excruciating hardship for the last few years, we don't have any other option than to live to the expectation of the people. Why party lose election is not because they are not doing the best. It's just dwindling of goodwill. Once your goodwill start deteriorating, it will get to a point that you will not have any, and then you are kicked out. So I think that the speed to which things are happening in this country is just the expectation of the people. So for me, right now, any poll that you will do will give that favorable response. Our prayer and hope is that we are able to keep to the pace
maintain the momentum.
And to maintain the momentum.
Okay.
That will sustain us in government.
Okay.
And observe something. Most of the time, even a party that wins 8 years, the margin you used to win in your first year as compared to the margin you win even in 4 years time,
normally
whittles down
yes.
because of doing goodwill.
Yes.
So every effort must be put in place to protect this goodwill.
Right.
So that is why you see that even most of our campaign promises we are trying to execute it even in the 2025 budget because you cannot take the people for granted.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say about it.
There's something called political inflation. So as for the inflation, you suffer it, but you have to just slow it down. That's
yes.
all. Anyway, slow the level of disinflation. No, in fact, disinflate,
yes.
but at a slower pace. Anyway, I want to thank you so very much, Musa Dankwa, for your time, and it's always a pleasure having you join us on the show. So we should watch out for your next post in 3 months' time, which is around July therebout. That would be very interesting because you see, at that time, the picture would have been much clearer in terms of who is going where. They themselves will put it pop up. And me and you are here.
Not our side.
No, even the NDC side. Watch out. By June, July, people will be meeting all kinds of people and be announcing their intentions.
Let me also comment in once again, especially if you look at the age distribution.
Yeah.
I think about 35 to 44 took about 35 or something % of the respondents.
Yes.
That shows the direction of the country because Ghana is gradually becoming a very youthful population.
Yeah.
And any poll that seeks to respond to the core issues of the youth must be commended. And then you talked about economic issues in the poll. I was particularly happy if you look at the standard of living. I think you did something on standard of living, cost of living issues. And then, like he talked about, the budget expectation.
Okay.
We have always maintained that this budget received the highest appraisal from the citizens. And I am not surprised by the level of satisfaction people are tied to the budget. And it's not only a budget now. Now we are seeing deliverables.
Right.
E-levy, I think, from on your phone, you had the message from the telcos.
I got a text.
So these are realities we are living now. And I'm sure his next exit poll, you'll see much improvement, especially when it comes to the performance of the government.
So Atai Issa has promised, in fact, he promised off air that he wants to prove to me that the E-levy is not working anymore. And so he's going to send me 5,000 Ghana cedis on the show. We just want to test it. And then I'll send it back to him.
Not refundable.
Sorry?
Not refundable.
No, this one is refundable. This one is refundable.
But don't forget the still percentage on COT from the telcos.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, of course.
So if I send you 5,000, can you send me the same 5,000?
Don't take something away. No, but that's not e-levy. That's not e-levy. All right, thank you so very much, Musa Dankwa, for your time. Have a good day, sir. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum once again. So we're still live on Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Audu Moro. Joining us in the studio is the Sanglerego MP Atai Issa and also Ernest Adade of the New Patriotic Party. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Yapomuji ni agubi. Ghana fweni aji. If you say ya your local spices na ya fra dia ya sankofa natural spice.
Me de go me jollof mu. Me misti wa hoduma. Emanate dance.
Stanley, the barbecue the go on.
Sankofa natural spices. And one you use 100% natural. Say the happen.
Adofo, mamu ye huge mistake. Sankofa natural spices. Didi.
FDIG ejodin.
In Ghana's evolving economy, staying informed isn't an option. Business never sleeps. Markets shift. Deals are made. Power moves happen. From the boardrooms to the marketplaces. From government policies to global market trends, we bring you the insights, the analysis, and the strategies that shape your money, your business, and your future. Join us every Tuesday and Thursday from 12 noon to 2 p.m. on Good Afternoon Ghana Business on Metro TV, your ultimate guide to Ghana's evolving business landscape.
What premium shall we place on our health? Is it to wait and get hit with a condition? on a daily basis. How do we check the body before health slips away? Living Well is the lifestyle series that will help you get tips to some health issues. My name is Ethel Poplampo. Join me every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Metro TV for the Living Well show.
Living Well is brought to you by Fontina 74 Mixture.
All right, you're live on Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Audu Moro. So let's talk about an issue which has been of considerable interest and concern to not just ECG officials or leadership, but to the government and to a larger extent the populace, the people of Ghana. Now it's about the issue of missing containers which belongs to the Electricity Company of Ghana, which were locked at the Tema port and intended for clearance, and this has raised, indeed, significant concerns among stakeholders in the power industry and the general public. Now, the unaccounted for containers numbering over 1,300 have sparked widespread discussions across the media, with a lingering question of the minds of many Ghanaians being how the containers went missing at the port. There have been all kinds of theories, but we'll look at that at the right time. Now, there's been an investigative report which has been put together, or which has come out based on the recommendation of the minister. He set up a committee. The committee looked into the matter and this came up with the report. Now, the issue of that missing containers emerged following the findings from this investigative report on the state enterprise, and I'm talking ECG. Now, the report reveals that ECG's claim of having 2,491 uncleared containers was inaccurate, as an audit showed that only 1,134 containers were actually at the port, leaving 1,347 missing. The report also made several discoveries, including that before 2022, ECG had a dedicated fund. This is interesting. ECG had a dedicated fund that received weekly allocations for clearing shipment. However, the practice was discontinued due to a lack of funds, as cited by the ECG board. Now, despite financial constraints, ECG awarded contracts to 2 firms to clear the containers, one of which was pre-financed by ECG. One of these companies did not have the necessary license to handle the contract, raising concerns over procurement breaches or procurement violations. ECG's procurement directorate had been merged with the housing and estate unit, something it beats my mind. Why would they even do that? You know, procurement is such a big deal. You don't merge it with the housing estate unit. How? What was the thinking? What was somebody thinking? Anyway, so the director of a procurement had no prior experience in procurement and was not a member of any professional procurement body. Now, the containers at the port were filled with electrical cables and other essential equipment for Electricity Company of Ghana. Now, upon receiving this report and reacting to the development, John Jinapor described the situation as alarming. He's questioning how the containers could have gone missing without any notice being made. Now, to get to the bottom of the incident, the minister assured that a thorough investigation would be concluded or conducted, and he asked that he would involve the Attorney General and the Ghana Police Service to help track down the location of the over 1,300 missing containers. As these containers cannot vanish into thin air, he says we'll work with the Attorney General's department and the police to ensure those responsible are held accountable and to recover either the containers or their value. He further gave a 1-week ultimatum to the ECG to restructure its procurement unit and address procurement breaches or lapses following the disappearance of the containers. He has also explained the rationale behind establishing an investigative committee, stating that the former government during the transition period had disclosed that 3,000 ECG containers were stuck at the port. However, he notes that upon assuming office, the team identified inconsistencies in the figure provided, which prompted the need for further investigations. Now, let me set the record straight. During the transition period, the outgoing NPP administration disclosed that approximately 3,000 ECG containers were being held at the Tema port due to the inability of ECG to clear them. However, upon resuming office, I visited the Tema Harbour and was presented with a different figure of 2,500 containers, which had incurred a demurrage cost of 1.5 million cedis. The discrepancy in these figures prompted me to establish an investigative committee to verify the circumstances surrounding the containers. Now, the committee's report, which was presented to me, confirmed that over 1,300 containers were indeed missing, contrary to the narrative given by the previous administration. As a result, criminal investigations will be launched immediately, and those responsible would undoubtedly be prosecuted. The government remains committed to ensuring that such irregularities do not go unpunished. Now, there's also a former Deputy Minister for Energy, Collins Amako-Mensah, who has also been commenting on the matter. He says that those who are involved, it's clearly a collusion between the ECG staff and the Tema Port people. And also, the former MD of the ECG, that's Samuel Dubik Mahama, has also been commenting on this matter. And he feels that, first of all, it is not possible for those containers to go missing. And that most of those containers may have been auctioned because, they attracted demurrage, and the ECG didn't have, of course, ECG didn't have the money to clear them, and so they attracted demurrage, and they were auctioned. And that there's no way these containers, they're too heavy and too big to go missing. But there's also another number, about 47 containers, which were carted from Tema Port to Abelinque by the National Security. We don't know why those specific containers had to be carted from Tema Port to National Security in Abelinque. That matter has also been contained in the report by the committee that was put together to look into it. So let's try and see if we can make sense of all of this, because it's beginning to look a little confusing and all of that. So my two guests are here. Ernest, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Page. It is always a pleasure having you. Now, I'll start with you. You have commented on this matter before, and you're saying that these containers, you're saying the containers are not missing. You think that there's more to the matter, and that the government should be held responsible for the missing containers. Are you still stand by that position?
Thank you, Moro. Special greetings to you, my brother, and then the viewers all over. I have held a position, not necessarily that the containers are not missing. Okay. I heard that from Samuel Dubik himself.
All right.
But I have been saying that containers cannot vanish.
Okay.
Containers cannot just go missing from a harbor just like that, because there are processes that you have to go through to clear your car. This statement was also made in respect of another statement made, which said that they should go and ask the former board chairman, the former MD of ECG. And my argument is simple. If I brought a car into this country and I couldn't clear because I didn't have the duty and left it at the port, and go back and the car is not at the port, am I the one to be asked where the car is? He couldn't clear it. And if he has any method, any strategy, any way he could have brought the things out of the port, he would have done it. But the port refused to release the goods to ECG because they said you cannot pay, and if you don't pay, we won't give it to you. The man goes away, comes back, and the container is not there. And look at the car situation. You say you won't give my car to me because I couldn't pay the duty. Then demurrage came on, and you still said, I will not give it to you. And I couldn't come and use some force to come and pick my car and go away. I come and ask you the next time, and you say, but the car belongs to you, so where did the car go? It doesn't make sense. The Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority have processes you use to clear goods. The customs are responsible. We have a national security structure in the port which takes care of these things. And for a car, even in fact, if you have a bag in a container, or you have a car engine, any part, anything in a container at the harbor, you can't just walk in and pick it and walk out. let alone containers. And not one, not two, not 100, but over 1,300 containers.
And these are huge containers we're talking about.
That's complete absurdity. If anybody should tell me that, go and ask the person who brought the goods and he couldn't clear it and you refuse to give it to him, go and ask him, it doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't make sense. So that's why I keep saying that. Nobody at the harbor, the national security, the minister himself, and I gave a good example, quoting he himself. He said he received a handing over note saying there are 3,000 containers at the harbor. He went for a fact-finding mission. He went to verify whether 3,000 containers were at the port. He came back to Parliament, the House of Records, and said that the containers are 2,500. Please, the minister, nobody can convince me Jinapor looks like an idiot. No. That went there to fact find. He didn't see containers and goes to Parliament to say that I saw 2,500. So that your argument that he was told, then what did he go to the harbor for? He could have picked the phone and called them and they would have told him there are 2,500. Then he went and it's not 2,000.
So you probably, you're suggesting that perhaps he spoke too soon. As soon as he noticed that there was discrepancy
something is amiss.
Okay, so as soon as he noticed the discrepancy between what was contained in the transition report and what he was told when he visited the Tema port, he probably should have just kept quiet.
No.
And then say there's a difference between 3,000 and 2,500. And so you know what? I'm not going to go and publicly state that it's 2,500.
Let me do an audit.
Let me do an audit before I come up with a number.
But he went to Parliament. He didn't say it. He didn't organize a press conference. Or he wasn't, so that you say that, on the spur of the moment. He went to Parliament. Tells me that he would have been given documentary evidence. He would not just meet somebody at the harbor or anybody at all. He said, there are 2,500 and goes to Parliament to go and talk about it. Nobody can convince me unless you want to tell me the man doesn't know his job. And this is somebody you can't convince me doesn't know what he's doing there.
Right.
So I believe something went wrong. And that something could be that people knew government have changed. People knew those things were there. And people knew that they can play tricks with the system and get away with it. That's my conviction.
But but some of the alleged culprits or the buyers of these containers say that they bought these containers last year, October, September.
Look, I listened to a news report.
The Indian man who was arrested said he bought them last year.
He bought it in October.
October last year, yes.
So you saw Samuel Dubik's letters.
Okay.
To GRE. I don't know whether you saw them.
Yes, where he was urging them not
to sell specifically containers containing meters.
Okay.
Well, I told you the last time, my house caught fire. The meter caught fire. ECG almost burnt my house. Okay. Because the meter was faulty, was problematic. I had reported it. I have evidence. I have actually written a letter to them. And when the meter was giving me the error, I copied the text messages that came. I copied the text messages, printed it on A4 sheet large, attached it to a letter, and sent it to ECG Adenta. Then it was Dodoa. No action was taken until my house caught fire. That day, only grace. I got home 15 minutes, and the meter caught fire. Fortunately, it caught fire. The meter was outside. These were meters that were brought into this country. So when Samuel Dubik's letter said that they were having issues with the meters that were brought, and for that matter, they had issues with the supplier, and they were trying to deal with it. Personally, somebody like me understood it. So they brought meters that were substandard or whatever technical word terms you will use for it, supplied it to people, and the day I went to ECG at Adenta at Lakeside, I met hundreds of people there whose meters had caught fire. So for whatever reason that they decided not to take the meters, it's the same reason why, if you remember, in the 1990s, 98, 99, thereabout, some gallopers were brought into this country, and Jerry Rawlings, who then was a no-nonsense man, said this is not what I requested, and you didn't supply it, and this is not what the government requested, and for that matter, we won't take delivery. You understand? So if there are issues like this, they have a point that we will. But Samuel Dubik was talking specifically in those letters of not auctioning about meters, and he adduced reasons. He said that those meters can come into the system because if you auction the meters, nobody, ECG is a monopoly. Nobody else supplies electricity apart from ECG and NEDCO, right? Not the electricity.
Yes, NEDCO.
So if you auction meters in Ghana to a private person, what is he going to use them for? It's not kurikuri that is going to sell on the street for people to buy and chew. So if you auction the meters to me, what am I going to use it for? Sell it on the open market or through some back door. And these meters, when my meter had an issue and I started talking, they said the ECG came out to say that they had meters that people went through some unorthodox means to get them some meters from Togo and things, and they were in our system.
Yeah.
So these are issues that we cannot just play with it and leave. And that's why I said, this is Ghana, our country. If this electricity collapses, industry collapses, your media, your whatever, you collapse, everybody goes down. The economy will crash if only the energy we are using to power the economy goes down. And therefore, ECG matters should not be taken for granted. And I have said it over and over again. I'm one person who believes the ECG management, the ECG is too huge for one agency to manage. And some form of breakup or how do you call it? Maybe decentralizing it into regions and having... Because you hardly have problems. NEDCO performs better than ECG. I don't know the reason. I have no scientific proof. Yeah. But physically, NEDCO power outages and things are better. Maybe because in the north, the consumption is not that heavy as in the south and all that. But if the north, where the consumption is not even that heavy, we had a VRA manage something like that. Then the south, where the consumption is huge and industries are heavier here, we have only ECG doing the work. I listened to some of the...
But they have regional managers.
You have regional managers. All of them are culminating into one office, which is the...
So they must enjoy some level of independence.
I listened to Samuel Dubik saying that you go to the office and sometimes you forget to eat. That one, we all do that. Maybe not because there's too much workload, but because you have one or two things to do. It happens to me virtually every day.
Yeah.
It's normal for me. If I don't eat in the house, maybe sometimes I'll get home before I eat again. So it's normal.
Yeah.
It's normal. It's not a problem. But these issues we are addressing, it's a big deal. If the minister comes, the numbers they are throwing out, Moro, which one do you believe? They said some 7 were requested by the minister himself. The letter is here, right? Some 709 or 709 was requested by National Security. Another 40-something, 46 or so were requested by the National Security.
Yeah.
The numbers are confusing. We have a government in place. I said no container leaves a harbor. Nothing leaves the harbor without a paper trail. Now we have digitalized the harbor. So the minister is playing tricks with our minds. I repeat, the minister is playing tricks with our minds because with a click of a button, we will know where every container came from, which shipping line brought it, which clearing agent worked on it, which truck took it out of the port.
I mean, it shouldn't be difficult to ascertain at all.
So why are we here?
Okay.
Why are we having this conversation?
All right. So let me pick the thoughts of the Honourable Member of Parliament, Osan Lerogo, on this matter as well. I mean, what do you also make of this? I mean, have you had time to even read the report, which has been commissioned by or produced by the committee that's been set up? Have you had the full report?
Yes. In fact, before I also make a comment on it, let me use this platform to thank John Dramani Mahama for nominating Abdullahi Imorogon as my municipal chief executive yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
On behalf of the constituency and on my good self, I want to thank His Excellency for the honor done us. Having said that, we need to also commend the Minister of Energy and Green Transition and the technical committee chaired by Prof. Innocent Senyo for the diligent work that they did. I was in Parliament actually when the report was tendered.
Okay.
I was in Parliament, and I'm surprised my brother is saying that containers cannot vanish. We're in this country when excavators got vanished. Excavator.
They never vanished.
So if you say containers cannot vanish, I'll be tempted to ask myself, so how did the excavators fly?
So you mean without wings?
Yeah, without wings.
No. This is
no,
mischievous.
but it's not mischievous.
No.
Where is the location of the 500 excavators?
But Boro.
No, on a more serious note.
Boro. Correct
this matter is back in
this excavator matter. We are not going back to it. I don't believe excavators also vanished.
The circumstances that surrounded.
That they vanished.
Yeah. How can he believe excavators vanished?
My point is that the circumstances that led to the missing of those excavators are the same circumstances that can occasion this.
Okay.
That's my point.
Okay.
Number two, we must also understand that this report was commissioned on 31st January.
Yeah.
It is not because the minister just ran to Parliament to start making it in March. No. The report, he commissioned the report after the transition report came, that there were some about 2,500 containers locked up at the ports. So if you look at the terms of reference, the point was that he tasked the committee to give him the clearance status and procurement issues surrounding the hold-up. Now, the issue came to Parliament after Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin made a statement on it, because it became a public discussion. So the minister, in fact, I was the first person they sent the report to in Parliament to debate on the matter. So it is not out of mischief that the minister had to come to Parliament. It was in response to a statement made by the minority leader. That's number one. Number two, ordinarily, I would have just said it is one of those things, let's allow the investigators to take his course. But based on the angle he is coming from, we need to set the record straight first of all. Number one, it is not the minister who brought out the figure of 2,500. It was contained, and it is available to Parliament. It was contained in a transition report. He brought it to Parliament.
No, the transition report actually mentions 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that it is, you get my point right. I'm saying that it is not the minister that brought out the figure. When he went to the Tema port with officials of the Ministry of Energy and Green Transitions, when on-site counting was done, that was when they got to know that about 1,357 containers were missing. And he commissioned relevant state agencies to investigate the matter. And look, this is not new. When you are doing fact-finding or audit, you give the benefit of the other person to hear from them. The committee met with the technical directors and the procurement officers of ECG, and they provided basis for those over procurement. In fact, it is not only in 2024 that the ECG recorded over procurement. It was clear. No, I'm coming. I'm coming. Oh, you calm down. I'm telling you that
he's building a point.
I'm building a point to suggest that this thing happened. It was occasioned by ECG, not for the consumption of Ghanaians. Because if you have your own planned procurement approvals for the year 2024, you have your own planned procurement. Look at it here. I have the report on page 13. The value of planned procurement, if it was for the benefit of Ghana, how do you plan for something and go and order for more than that? In 2024, the value of planned procurement was 1,397,760. That was the value of planned procurement. The value of actual procurement rose from the 1.3 billion to 8 billion. So it tells you that even the procurement itself was not meant for local consumption. Because there are technical officers at ECG that can tell the local demand per year. And look at it, Moro. If you come to 2022, the value of plant procurement was 1.7 billion. Actually, the amount they spent on procurement that year was 460 million. That means that the deviation from the plan was a surplus to the state of 1.3 billion. Suddenly, immediately they merged the procurement department with the estate department in 2023. The plant procurement of 935 million rose to 8 billion in 2023, and a deficit to the state of 7.3 billion. And the same thing happened in 2024, a deficit of 6 billion. My point is that this cannot be ordinary. That you plan something and you exceed it by more than 7,000 percentage points. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, please go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I have to buy one car.
Yeah.
No, even I was coming to that. The comparison is even faulty. The comparison is very faulty. This is a state heist. No.
Maybe. So I bought 2 cars and I left it at the house. That's finished funny. So remain, forget about
No. You cannot appreciate it. You can
It's getting there. Yeah, it's getting there.
I'm saying, listen to my point, please. Please get my point right. My point is that you cannot appreciate the content of missing containers without understanding the basis upon which the procurement was done. It was already done from ab initio with ill intent. That is my point.
Punish the intent. Punish procurement. So, but what I'm saying is we are interrogating missing containers. Don't mix them. If you mix them up, we lose focus. The focus is that we imported 1,000 containers. Even if we were to import
I don't think you should assume the posture of Reverend.
And the 1,000 we can't find.
No. Don't emulate
he has decided to approach his take on the matter by setting the context within which all of this is happening, and then he will.
And then I will land on it on the missing containers.
So just allow me.
So I'm not getting it.
I'm sure those listening will get my point. Number 2, when the containers arrived, management neglect resulted in the demurrage. It's management neglect, because when they were asked why they could not clear those goods, they said lack of funds. Moro, it comes back to the same point. How do you procure something that you don't have funds for? Yet, a company called Mint Logistics was given a pre-finance by ECG itself of 30 million to go and clear some of the containers, when ECG, by their own procedure, are self-clearance. I said the demurrage situation was a situation created by ECG and the government to award it to a company of 159 million Ghana cedis. Let's not be ostriches. So you will not appreciate this issue without knowing this background. Number 2, let me go to look at even ECG itself. Management responded by saying that the overprocurement happened as a result of pressure from above. Who is the above person in this case? An institution led by a board chair who is now the minority leader, with other leadership of the minority current who were serving on the ECG board. And they all looked on and said it was pressure from above. Who again? Let's go to the procurement genesis of ECG from 2022. All this procurement happened through single source procurement. And they were selected not based on competence and capacity, but because of somebody's recommendation from above. In 2022, total number of single source procurements was 33 contracts. National competitive tendering, 0. Restricted tender, 0. Request for price quotation, 100. proprietary 9. The total number of contracts in that year was 142. In 2023, single source procurement jumped from 33 to 512. From 33 to 512. And in 2024, it also came to 425. You cannot say this is ordinary. So for me, I have no doubt in my mind that heads must rule. People must be led to account for the stewardship that they were entrusted in by the Ghanaian people. And I'm happy my brother is talking about calling for more investigation, and even when there are people that must be punished, I don't want him to come back one day to talk about witch hunting, because that is the issue that has characterized our politics. One issue of national importance and interest has come up like this, and people are made to face the law. We all suddenly become ostriches and pretend like, oh, it is political witch hunts.
Before you get to the point about what we need to do to anybody found culpable, did you tell us about these procurement irregularities, right? And the recklessness associated with this, from what you just said appears. Are you saying that these were done with the sole objective of misappropriating
deliberately
these containers?
Deliberately.
Or selling these containers amongst themselves?
So let's ask ourselves this question. What in Ghana, or what population increase or sudden jump in local consumption of meters can lead to more than 8 billion Ghana cedis worth of contract from a planned budget of 1 billion? What can possibly cause that? It can only mean one thing. And that's why I'm saying that. Why is it that single source procurement jumped from 33 to about 512 and to 425? What occasioned that within a space of 1 year?
So you're suggesting that these containers were not missing?
It was not missing. Sold. I still believe these containers is not missing to the people who perpetrated this act on Ghanaians. But it is missing to our state. Look, a few days ago, Honorable A+ intercepted a truck
around that
load of these cables. I said that my brother talked about the fact that a goods cannot be cleared at the port without paper trail. You prepared your transition report and handed it over to us. We cannot manufacture a trail that was not there.
It's there. It's digitalized. It's there.
You don't get my point.
The minister should work.
Let me give you the composition of the technical committee. This has a representation from Ghana Revenue Authority.
They sold the meters, so they all said they were auctioning.
No.
Or you didn't see Honorable Samuel Dubik's letter.
And are you saying that this letter was oblivious from the technical committee?
Look.
Is that what you are saying?
I am not saying that. What I'm saying is, I heard Samuel Dubik say that even the committee, he as the MD, whose organization, under whose regime these issues were purported to have happened. The committee did its work, completed the work, and did not contact.
Yeah, I think that was unfortunate. He should have been spoken to.
Those things don't make sense to ordinary brains.
No, it makes sense.
Maybe it's only the political side of things that will understand it.
No.
I am investigating you, your organization,
you see,
and I won't contact you.
You see, you must understand every organization with its procurement structure.
Reference the legal.
Let's not express ignorance about some of these things. Please.
It will get to my turn.
Yes, every organization with its procurement structure.
Right.
If the MD is not part of the entity tender committee or approval of the procurement, when it comes from board, when documentation suggests the various approval tiers or authorization matrices, and the MD is not needed, they won't call you. It is not always the case.
Was he indicted in the report?
I haven't suggested so. I'm talking about. Have I said that?
I'm not aware he's been indicted.
So
nothing.
And he even volunteered. No, you see, that's where you are treating this topic with politics.
No,
because if you are asking me,
I've read his letters. I wasn't there. You weren't there. He was there. I have read all his letters. The ones to GRA. I've read what the minister had written and everything. And I am saying that
you see,
he asked GRA not to auction the meters, the container with the meters.
I'm not sure
and gave his reason.
I'm not sure I've impugned any.
I'm coming. So meters he spoke about. Now, I agree with him when he said you didn't invite me when you were doing your investigation. So I, as Samuel Dubik, cannot speak to the document.
And he just told you that he didn't find it necessary to speak to him.
Exactly. And what I'm saying is, it's fine. They have the mandate.
Yes.
They know the TOR that they were given. And if they think that the MD will not serve their purpose, that's fine.
Exactly.
Right. But what I'm saying is, you and I'm surprised my brother is talking procurement when we are talking, quote and unquote, I'm using the word advisedly, theft of containers.
He said that
whatever.
to explain
that
why
saying
the containers
that
cannot be found.
Moro,
Look, essentially what he's saying is simple.
It's either black or white.
No. What he's saying is simple. Some people deliberately brought these containers just so they can sell it to themselves.
They didn't bring the containers because of
pure conjecture. That's how.
Absolutely.
Pure conjecture.
And that's why he's stating.
And we are interrogating facts. Here, around this table,
yes,
we are interrogating what is available to us, the facts.
Yes.
Conjecture does not have a place in here.
I agree, but facts, the facts in relation to the fact that we can't find the container, that's a fact. Exactly. How did the containers get missing? People are entitled to give their own analysis.
Is it how the containers were bought that is the problem? Or how containers left harbor?
For the last time, let me just established a linkage between how those containers were procured and why they are missing. That's exactly what I'm telling you.
You see, Mero, let me say something.
Yeah,
when
you haven't landed.
He has taken over the show. Let me use 1 minute. Look, first of all, my brother, get it for the last time.
Yes.
I'm saying that you have a planned procurement for a year to be 1.3 billion. All of a sudden, that planned procurement led to an actual procurement of 8 billion, 7 billion excess. I'm saying that this cannot be ordinary. It means that those procurement was not done for Ghana. That is what I'm telling you.
And I'm saying that is pure conjecture.
How?
So you can
how can procurement just jump like that in a year?
I am saying.
But he's saying that he's saying that that's fine.
Let's go and find the facts.
It does not necessarily mean.
And
that
coming from the second leg.
Moro, let me give him something.
Yes.
In my opinion, I don't want to look like I'm defending. You know my position.
I know.
Me, you can't go to office and misbehave for me to come and sit and defend you.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. But let us give the people of Ghana something to feed on.
Okay.
And this is what I'm saying. The containers. There was at a point in time, ECG decided to change all the meters, the old ones, the new ones.
Yes.
Let's replace all.
Yes.
Maybe I'm just saying.
Because let's not go.
Maybe at the beginning of the year we said that, or when we were budgeting, we said that we are budgeting for these number of meters to serve this purpose. Then the program changed. I am not defending them.
So you are now doing conjecture.
I am not talking about quantum of procurement and whatever.
Yes.
I am saying I am a Ghanaian. I have a meter. If my house got bent because of a faulty meter, Ghana will not give me 1 pesewa. I have to go and look for money and rebuild.
Yes.
And that is on me, the ordinary Ghanaian. And this is my position. That the wrong things that the politicians are doing will negatively affect the ordinary man who queues to vote for you.
No. Yes.
And so if somebody stole a container full of taxpayers' money bought cables, why are we talking about why it was bought in the first place? I said if MPP man stole it,
yes.
If GRA went through the wrong way and sold it to an Indian man,
you are right.
Go for him.
No, you're right. But it is also important for us to try and understand, possibly, what may have accounted for the situation we find ourselves. In fact, the essence of the discussion here is where did the containers go and who's responsible for it?
Whenever I say you are not a politician, I know Kojo will know. Kojo, if you are watching, good morning.
And he's saying that.
The truth is,
and he's saying that. And
we politicians.
He's saying to you, okay, this whole matter, this whole thing about containers have gone missing and things like that, he doesn't agree. He doesn't believe it. He believes that these containers were brought in purposely to be sold.
Exactly my point. That's all I've been trying to tell you.
You shouldn't be doing this missing.
Let me quote from minority leader.
Logic.
Please.
The man brought 700 containers to sell.
Yes.
Right?
That's what he's saying.
Assume. Logic.
Yes.
And then these containers arrived in Ghana.
Yes.
His motive
is
to sell it. And that man who imported the containers didn't know that I want to steal these containers and sell.
Yes.
So I should look for money and clear these containers through the back door. And I will make noise about it and write letters to GRA about it and talk about it for
these
the
are
whole Ghana
all
to
charade.
hear.
Look,
before I
the
sell, I
minority
steal the
leader,
container and sell.
He doesn't buy yours.
Look, that is a very big charade. Look, minority leader. Wait, please.
Okay. Let me give
minority
you the last 2 minutes.
I'm talking about minority leader.
He's talking more like him.
I said the minority leader. I'm not promoting you. I said,
please go ahead.
You see, you people don't let me characteristics of you people now.
You have 2 minutes to do this.
The minority leader confirmed that some of the possible reasons, because he also encountered similar things in board chair in 2022.
Yes.
He said some of these things can happen as a result of collusion between ECG workers and people at the port.
Right.
Arrest them.
So don't debunk what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm saying that we are giving reasons or rationale as to how it can happen.
Yes.
You are trying to say that the minister should take Ghanaians serious by
what NS is saying, for him it doesn't matter. We cannot find a thing. Ghanaians are suffering as a result. Deal with the people.
Exactly.
It doesn't
matter who. So that is why the minister is not only talking.
Yeah, he has engaged.
He has engaged
the
Attorney General to take the matter up.
That's fine.
So that's why that's why I've been trying to explain to you that we are all on the same page. But those that have problems, let's deal with it. And finally, if you look at page 8 of the report, and let me read it.
1 minute.
That was Bonds Limited.
Yes.
Cleared 47 of the containers out of the port without following due processes of paying duties or taxes to the state.
Yeah.
Out of the 47 containers, the company delivered only 46 to ECG. That was Bonds Limited is currently demanding an amount of 5,290,000 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
These are material information that will aid in the subsequent investigation and prosecution.
That's fine.
So we are on the same page.
All right.
Okay. That's all I want.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You're on the same page, except that you looked at it from.
But Moro, he gave some analysis. I wanted just 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
Which analysis?
Just 1 minute. The excavator analysis. It doesn't add.
Okay.
There's an excavator that was demobilized.
Yes.
And left in the bush.
Yeah, they couldn't have flown.
In the bush.
Yes.
And the owner, what we hear is that they will go and buy a new. You remove the control board.
Yeah.
They go and get a new control
And
board
fix it.
and move their thing and go away with it. And it is deemed to have been vanished.
Yes,
I don't believe it's vanished. But when you let a container in the harbor under national security protection, under customs protection, under GPHA protection, and it gets missing, and then you leave an excavator in the bush, and the owner takes it away.
No,
the
man says we should stop talking about missing. People have sold it. That's it. Anyway, so Alhaji Hamza from Pig Farm says, "Good morning, my brother. It's a fact that the country was criminally managed under the Eswal administration. Honorable Afidemaki is in Parliament made it clear that it's a fact. Containers are being sold at the harbour and in connection with the customs people. My brother, a full-scale investigation should go into the matter. The monies that are in this scandal is not a joke. People must be held responsible and heads must roll. I'm surprised functionaries of the MPP are saying that the containers are not missing, but rather misplaced. My brother, the truth is the ECG containers have been sold because they have been to some Chinese warehouses and others in Central Region. No one should try to insult our intelligence. Let's get serious in this country." Hamza from Pig Farm sent that message. My name is Aldumo. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Ernest Adade of the MPP and also Ataisa, MP for Sanerugu. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
More than 80% of global trade is carried by sea. Most of the products we consume daily travel through ports, making them a key link in the global supply chain. The Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority is committed to ensuring the enhancement, resilience and sustainability of port infrastructure and maritime trade. Get to know which vessel is bringing your goods, how much duty you are required to pay, and how quickly you can clear your goods from the ports of Ghana. We ask the relevant questions and elicit responses from the appropriate authorities. We interact with you via our social media platforms and put your queries across to the expert. Iron Port shows this and every Sunday live on Metro TV at 5:30 p.m. Iron Port is proudly brought to you by and powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Iron Port, transparency in doing business and building nation.
One degree, one child.
This week on the KelPO Show, we sit down with a true leader in education, Professor Naba Appiah-Ampfu, Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana.
At the University of Ghana, there's so much talent, and my job is to ensure that I harness all of these talents and provide an enabling environment for these talents to thrive.
Tune in as she shares her incredible journey from rising through the ranks to becoming the head of Ghana's premier university.
You need to appreciate from scratch what it means to rise in academia, and it's important that we have a supportive home environment. So please, men out there, support the women.
The PL Show is brought to you by Kel Chaco, Kel 360 and Kel Kids 2